Do you think the United States, without Israel, without their influence, whatever, without APAC, without any of this, do you think the US would still be doing everything the US is doing foreign policy wise? 'Cause this
No,
gets to the root
yeah,
of whether or not Israel's in charge, right?
uh, yes, and this idea about Israel being in charge, it's like a dance. Who's leading the dance? These are dance partners,
So you
Israel.
think the US would still be doing all the things the US is doing in the Middle East?
Hello? Oh, absolutely. I
Like,
mean,
we
this
would have
is
still gone to war with Iraq without Netanyahu intervening. We would
yeah,
have we try to
yeah,
go to war with Iran. We're doing all you think we
yeah.
just use Israel kind of as an excuse or like a
No,
partner?
that Kim, the way that you pose that question is important. Actually, it's of deep importance because um, would we as a country be doing this? Would we be attacking Gaza? No, no.
No,
We the
right, they wouldn't
Israel's
be doing
yeah.
that.
We let Israel do that. But would we still be engaging in this uh, in this empire building? Yes, and I'm saying that it's absolutely wrongheaded. For those who um, are interested in history, uh, read Barbara Tuchman's *The March of Folly*. She traces thousands of years of human history, beginning, with Troy, the Roman Empire, and on and on and on, um, and how nations leaders chose worse as the better reason through what she described as a wooden headedness, thick heads, not really an ability to see what's transpiring. Uh, we're talking about human nature here in a sense. And the question is, do we have the capacity to transcend this, or are we locked into this endless wheel of violence? I have a different view of humanity, a more hopeful view, some might call it, in that we actually have the capacity to self-consciously evolve. Um, and
But I wanna understand, let's just say in a world, let's say Israel never existed, right? It never was created into a country in 1947, it just doesn't exist, okay? And it's the Middle East. I'm trying to understand what would be the motivation for the US continuing to do what do you think the excuse would be for all of the war? What kind of wars would we be waging over there?
well,
What would
well,
we be doing, and what would be the excuse if
well,
Israel
well,
weren't around?
I mean, this gets hypothetical, but I'll tell you what isn't hypothetical. You go after towards the end of World War II, when a decision was made to drop the atomic bomb on Japan, not because Japan was going to win the war, because they were clearly losing, and every U.S. general was involved in the strategies for winning the war, had decided that no, Japan can't win. But we dropped an atomic bomb anyway. What was that about? That was about heading off Russia.
Mm,
It's see, this is sociological analysis here. This you get to a point where you ask yourself, what is it about the conduct of nations where people feel that they have to be the ones that rule? And uh, we have this imperial instinct which still ignites our thinking, and it's fear based, or it uses fear instrumentally. I mean, let's look at the other possibility here, and that is that there are economic interests who are making a ton of money off of war every day, and they just keep it going.
right,
And
but they can't say that to the American people, right? So they have to come up with an excuse that
right,
people will buy and that
right,
Congress members will buy,
right. That's
to sell to
exactly
their
right.
constituents,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But why didn't I buy it? Because in Cleveland, I represented a working class people who steel workers, auto workers, machinists, um, aircraft workers, people who are in the service industry, people who work with their hands their whole lives,
Right.
and they just wanted to survive. They just wanted to enjoy their families and to live life. And
But
uh,
certainly they must have tried to get you, whether it be APAC or whether it be the military industrial complex. What did they try to sell you on?
well, I saw the fear. I'm an observer first. I'm watching what's going on. I saw the Congress lured into supporting the bombing of Syria, of Serbia, for example.
Mhm.
I saw the buildup, as I wrote about on a Substack piece, in the war towards in Iraq. Um, Look, I'm from the neighborhoods of Cleveland. It's like I'm one of these guys that what you see is what you get, and
But what did they say to you? They must have said, but Dennis." You're like,
yeah,
"I don't wanna go to war. I don't wanna do this." And they're like, but Dennis." What was the but?
yeah, the but is what kind of an American are you?
Oh,
What I'm the kind of that defends a country if it has to be defended, but doesn't mistake defense and offense.
when you would
Uh,
ask your fellow Congress members, "Why are you supporting this?" What was their answer?
I think for some it's a genuine concern that America's interests were involved and we had to protect our country. There's this there's this belief that people have that you articulated it very well a moment ago. You have to be strong. You have to be the strongest. Um, I see strength through peace.
Mm,
Others see peace through strength. But in strength through peace, you don't. You're careful about any interventions. You don't intervene if you can avoid it. You don't use your military power to dominate another country. Um, and you need enough to defend yourself. But when the U.S. is spending more than a good part of the world combined annually, this isn't about defense anymore. Matter of fact, it's being made manifest that the money that we have is about offense. It's about domination. It's old thinking. The era of unipolarity is gone. Goodbye. But some people haven't gotten that message. You heard the apocrypha of people who didn't get the message World War II was over and they were still fighting from isolated islands. Uh, there's but it's more than this. We have to decide again, who are we as a people? Where do we want to go with this country? Are we content with seeing $1 trillion a year spent for war, or do we want to recreate America in,
mhm.
in an image where freedom is there? We're losing our freedoms right now. Our First Amendment is getting vitiated by those who don't even want us to talk about genocide, by those who want to establish sanctions against universities and college students for protesting. What's that about? I mean, what's happening to America at this point is that we're entering into a cataclysmic dark period where we're losing our sense of conscience as a nation. And that conscience has always been expressed on college campuses by young people who understand totally what's going on because the future knows when it's placed that it's being prepared for it, is being threatened. And what we're seeing is a diminution of our constitutional rights while we roam about the world looking for dragons to slay and getting our partners here, our dance partner Israel, to do some dirty work with us and for us. This is wrong. It's immoral. We need to look towards the light here of conscience, of humanity, of how do you hold a society and a world together with all these tensions that exist naturally, and that's the kind of thinking we have to get back to. Otherwise, we're just a juggernaut that's going to crash,
Yeah.
and that's not right. Too many people and too many generations have spent too many years trying to help America really be that shining city on a hill, and with all the foibles and problems that we've had as a nation, social, economic, uh, we still have the capacity to be much better than we are. and to deliver a decent life for the American people first
Yeah.
and foremost.
I'm glad you brought this up, the free speech issue. So I hear you. I agree that probably without Israel existing as a nation, the United States would still be going to war all over the place. The military industrial complex has too much to gain. Probably in the Middle East, they would use Saudi Arabia as the reason. Well, we got to protect our allies, Saudi Arabia, whatever. There, it would be something. If it wasn't Israel, it would be somewhere else, and they would come up with all kinds of excuses as to why we need to be marching in and toppling regimes in order to take resources, and make sure that we control the resources rather than China or Russia or whatever. So I'm with you on that. I think that that's probably a fair assessment. The U.S. would be still warmongering with or without Israel. But how do we then explain the support for Israel's genocide? And how do we explain the allowing of the pro Israel organizations to essentially draft legislation to censor Americans? Or like all of the politicians going to Israel and kissing the Wailing Wall, doing all of these things that, like I said, I understand foreign policy. We would just be warmongers no matter what. We don't need Israel as an excuse, quite frankly. We used Russia and the USSR as an excuse for a long time. We just, whatever. But how do we explain our administration, our congressional leaders, decade after decade? It doesn't matter which one's in power, decade after decade, Democrats, Republicans, everybody going and kissing the Wailing Wall, supporting Israel, giving them all kinds of weapons in order to commit genocide, and on top of that, allowing BDS, anti-BDS laws, allowing free speech to be hindered, allowing these universities, forcing the universities into compliance to basically all to benefit Israel. How do we explain that?
Well, you explained it by a two-way street. I explained, we've been talking throughout this discussion about Israel being the tip of the spear in that region. You've heard of Kids R Us, Toys R Us, Israel R Us. Okay, they're they're unfolding U.S. policy. Can't be anywhere else, and any place else rather. No, let me restate that. It can't be anything else because the U.S. could stop it if it wanted to.
Right. But we're
But
not. So what does
but
Israel want?
because this is our policy too. Now, if people find that shocking, but it is our policy until we have a new foreign policy which puts Israel as just another nation, okay? Just another nation in that region. Until we get there, we're going to keep seeing this kind of conduct that won't even protect Saudi Arabia because once Qatar was bombed, all those nations in that region, they had their emergency meeting, and they know they could be next. This
Yeah.
isn't, but who's providing the planes? Who's providing the munitions? The United States of America. So let's go back to Congress, which and I may not have fully explained it, but there's a lot of money that goes into political campaigns. Once somebody gets to Congress, they want to stay in. They're worried about 30-second commercials that commercials don't have to be about Israel. They can be about something in their district that might be a political hot button issue that certain interests will fund in order to push that member out the door.
Mhm.
I mean, now this is where we need to look very seriously at the role of AIPAC. I think AIPAC should be registered as a foreign agent. I don't think AIPAC should be able to contribute to U.S. campaigns. You always worry about we send the money out there. How does it come back? Because it does influence U.S. policy. There's no question about it. Members of Congress get fearful. They get fearful of being primary. They get fearful of general election. Once you're
Well,
in
that's what I'm wondering. Are they operating and voting for all of these things out of fear? Or is it out of just genuine, I just love Israel because I'm a big old Christian Zionist? Or, what do you think? Like,
all
is
of
it?
the above. I'm not. These. Look, I made friends on both sides of the aisle. I'm not a partisan in the sense that Republicans are bad, Democrats are good. That's silly. So I talk to members. You can have as many reasons as you have members why this
Mhm.
happens. I will tell you if you take the time to walk through the the House buildings, which, as a former member, I'm privileged to do, through the Rayburn Building, the Longworth Building, and the Cannon Building, all named after former speakers. Take the time to walk through. You will see, inevitably, office after office. I stand with a placard outside the office saying, "I stand with Israel." This is deep, and I would say, if I were to guess, maybe at least a fifth of the Congress has that rock solid support for Israel position. Why? Well, you could come up with a number of different reasons. And I'm not going to impugn the motives of people I've served with or people that I talk to every day who are trying to represent their people. But make no mistake about it, the influence of the Democratic Fund for Majority, of the American Israeli Political Action Committee, is extraordinary, and they do and have the ability to make life miserable for an incumbent, and to help others get elected. They influence U.S. policy, but, and I say, don't ever forget this. It's not like U.S. policy would be any different. They're making sure it goes in a certain direction by having a Congress that will rise to 55 standing ovations for Benjamin Netanyahu, more than any president ever got, more than anybody ever had in the history of, of speaking before Congress. 55 standing ovations for Netanyahu a year ago, as he was urging war towards Iran. That doesn't happen overnight. That's engineered. And
It kind of is happening overnight a little bit because, the members of Congress switch over every 2 years. So it's, are they doing that? Are they giving him 55 standing ovations because they fear him and they fear the repercussions of not? Or do they genuinely love him and they love Israel and they really genuinely just support the state of Israel?
when you're in that chamber, it's behavioral contagion, okay? People stand up, you stand up. They sit down, you sit down. Some stand up out of a sense of they don't want to be seen sitting down because somebody's taking notes. It's like a big high school. But the serious part of it is that whatever Israel wants, it gets. But it is in concert with the U.S. policy.
Yeah.
You could say, well, they're driving U.S. policy. Well, they might be, but there's no objection here. What I'm advocating is a new U.S. policy, which is not Israel-centric, which does not conjure enemies, that defends the country when it needs defending, but does not go around and use the military to kill people anywhere it wants in the world, and does not give money to any other country for that purpose. And, Israel's politics, I believe, would be different if the U.S. didn't provide the resources. I think you would find that Israel would have to focus more on their domestic policies. I think you would find Benjamin Netanyahu would be in the dock again, answering questions about his corrupt conduct. But the war helps to, it forces people to consolidate their support even when they don't want to. So
It seems like that this is an impossible ask, quite frankly. I mean, so, there just seems to be there would be too many consequences. I mean, if the administration suddenly grew a spine and said, "That's it, we're cutting Israel off. We're not going to do this anymore. We're going to focus America first, like genuinely," then you would see a full court press by APAC and APAC-like organizations to make sure that every single member of Congress, uh, because Congress has it's an equal branch of government, that every member of Congress is on board with supporting Israel and
that
ensuring and stopping the president.
you're absolutely right, except for one thing, Kim. No member of Congress can mobilize a single soldier. No member of Congress can send money over for bombs if the president of the United States doesn't want that to happen. That doesn't happen. So you're right, though. I mean, there would be a mobilization. I would expect in a future presidential election where the American people have had it up to here with genocide, that is enabled by our country, and they want to take a new direction. That those who support this manifestation of murder on a daily basis are going to rise up and say, we have to keep doing this. No, we don't. We choose. This is choice. This is the ultimate choice. We choose to be the country we are when we are. The
Yeah.
question is, will we choose to be the country we want to be? And do we want to be a country that supports genocide? And I will state it again, as we're speaking, Gaza City's been bombed. Uh, Hundreds of people are being killed in Gaza City right now, thousands injured, and the IDF is on the march to clear the city. This is happening in September of 2025, and it is totally wrong, and that's why I'll say it for the umpteenth time: a new direction for America in the world, and a new direction for America at home.
Sounds to me, to wrap this up, to summarize it, what you're saying is we, the people, we, the American people, need to become more powerful. We need to recognize our power and realize that
Yes,
AIPAC can have all the money in the world and they could try to threaten our lawmakers or make them afraid of being primaried. They can attempt to control administrations and members of Congress, but we, the people, hold the ultimate power. And all we have to do basically is stand up and say, to the administration, to anyone running for office, to anyone in Congress, you will be primaried by us if you continue to support this. You will be
yes.
primaried by us. We are more powerful than AIPAC.
Kim, very eloquent statement of how we move from where we are to where we may be. Uh, Ultimately, the people have the choice. The people in Kentucky will have a choice as to whether or not they want a fearless defender of those rock solid American ideals of self reliance and independence and concern about people that Thomas Massey represents, or whether they just want to be usurped by some outside force that creates a puppet that they pin a congressional badge on. So
Mm.
this is a question that has to be answered in district after district, but it's not, and it hasn't risen yet to the level of a national concern. This idea of who does my member of Congress really represent? It isn't national yet, but it could be someday.
It
Could
seems to
be.
be getting there. I mean, there's certainly a lot more people questioning.
There's more questioning, and that's what that's what we should be privileged to do as Americans, to ask questions about what's actually going on,
Yeah.
and to challenge things that we don't like, and to speak up. I remember years ago, somebody would stand up and say, "I'm an American taxpayer and I demand my rights." Well, dream on today, except that we can recover that territory by insisting that our country stay out of wars,
Yeah.
insisting that America doesn't support wars in other countries or policies that result in genocide, and insisting that, hey, we, the taxpayers of America, have a right to see those resources here in this country. And what kind of a country would we have if, instead of spending 5 to 6 trillion dollars on a war in Iraq, we'd have kept it domestically? What kind of country would we have instead of spending countless trillions to bail out Wall Street? What would we have had on Main Street if we could have used the resources for this country? If
Yeah.
we had monetary policy that said, you know, let's let's see what we can do to have a good life here at home, instead of squandering money all over the world. So I'm and why wasn't I ever convinced by these interest groups to go in a different direction? I don't know, maybe because I'm from Cleveland, and you can't sell me, you can't stand on a street corner and sell me a watch off of a long arm, and it's not happening.
Well, unfortunately, Dennis, I think that other congressional reps from Cleveland have fallen prey to this. So I don't think it has anything to do with that. It's something else inside of you, something inside of Thomas Massey, something inside of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, we got to figure out what that is specifically so we can replicate it over and over and over again. And we, the American people, I think, do need to demand from all of our elected officials, we need to start having that kind of one issue voter mentality where we say, look, like where do you stand on America's foreign policy and all these foreign wars? And we just make sure that, like, look, if you don't have the right answer, the American people just won't vote for you. And if you then behave differently once you get there, we won't revote for you. I mean, that's just what it's got to be.
Kim, you mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's been very courageous in speaking out on this. And, again, as someone who's worked inside the Democratic caucus, you have to recognize people on the other side of the aisle who are taking risks. And in the middle of this big push to stand up and say, well, look, that's not what America ought to be about.
Right.
And I think, we can disagree on other things
Sure.
here at home, but if we don't come to an agreement about what America's role ought to be in the world, we won't be able to meet the needs of our people here.
That's for sure. Well, the piece is called Reflections on the 24th Anniversary of 9/11, From Twin Towers to Shock and Awe, Investigating U.S.-Israel Collusion and the Road to War. We do have that link down below to Kucinich Report Substack. Dennis, thank you for being here and giving us your insight and always for being on the right side of history with so much stuff. I mean, thank you for that. And hopefully, like I said, we can figure out what the secret sauce is and we can start selling it to everybody else. Dennis, thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.